form of prostate cancer. Dr. Mark Siegel joins me now. How was this missed, Doctor? The president is surrounded by the best doctors in the world all the time. How did they miss it?
Well, first of all, Stuart, I want to gently say that you just heard from Mark Meredith about how the doctors in the White House might not have been forthcoming on the cognitive slips of Biden. So I don't automatically assume that this was missed. But if it was missed, which is what they're saying, it's first of all, what extensive screening did they do? They should have been doing extensive screening on the President of the United States. I mean, there's some guidelines that are saying don't screen after 80, but I don't agree with those. And I certainly don't agree with those with the leader of the free world. So was he screened? The screening's pretty sensitive these days between a PSA, a free PSA, prostate-specific antigen, checking urine for biomarkers, genetic testing. You would think he'd get a full-court press. They're diagnosing him with pretty advanced stage prostate cancer, very aggressive, a metastasis to the bone already, having urinary obstructive symptoms. This doesn't occur overnight, Stuart, in case you're wondering. Aggressive notwithstanding, it doesn't occur overnight, and he must have had it while he was in the White House.
How long would it typically take for a cancer of this type to metastasize to the bones?
Well, that's a great question. So it goes from the prostate to the lymph nodes to the bone. The bone is the first place that it goes, and he does have only one metastasis to the bone, they're reporting. So that can happen fairly soon in a very aggressive cancer like this one, Gleason 9. And again, it's hormone responsive, so that and maybe planning other modalities too. But it's still a matter of several months in answer to your question. Got to be several months from the time it initiated. Look, 80% of all men over the age of 80 have some prostate cancer cells, 80%. And I think we got to revisit.
Joining me, really appreciate everybody being here. We've got to talk about the story that is happening all over America, and that is Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis on the heels of the Burr release, the Burr audio tape release, and the picture this paints for a complete cover-up by the Biden White House, going all the way back, not just before the debate. No, this potentially goes back all the way to the 2020 election. This is how bad this is getting. We've got Joe Scarborough with the doctor that he will probably never invite back on because this absolutely destroys this idea. We saw in that earlier clip, how was this missed? How was this missed by the White House doctors? It was not missed. Everybody knew that he had this. Everybody knew this was a problem. Everybody knew what was going on. This was not missed. This was an intentional cover-up. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let's dive right into this as we jump into Joe Scarborough and the doctor that he had that blows the lid on the Biden cover-up.
Oh, he's had this for many years, maybe even a decade, growing there and spreading. That's right. It's a little surprising. I look back at the records, and there's no evidence that when he got his health status and the medical records were released that he had a prostate-specific antigen. Now, it is true that a lot of people recommend not doing a prostate-specific antigen after 70, but President Biden's been in public life a very long time. He was vice president and had a lot of exams under 70. So it's a little surprising that they didn't do it. And maybe President Biden decided he didn't want the test. Many men do decide they don't want a PSA. But this is, it is also aggressive. When we talk about aggressive, part of what we mean is that Gleason score. That score is from it's 2 up to 10. and he's at a 9. And that means that the cancer doesn't look normal. It looks very abnormal, which is probably why it's in the bone. And as you point out, Joe, it's been around for a very long time in President Biden years. Exactly how many we don't know, obviously. And it is a little surprising to many of us oncologists that he wasn't diagnosed earlier.
Oh, of course he was diagnosed earlier. As you said, he's had this for years. It could have been a decade. So according to this doctor, Joe Biden has had this for upwards of a decade. And as an incoming president of the United States in 2020, he would have been subject to every battery of tests you can possibly imagine. They absolutely knew about this. Let's be honest. Now, why is it coming out now? Why is this diagnosis suddenly being made public? We're going to get to that as we get to the tail end of this video. But first, we're going to tie all this up. Remember, back right in election season, I believe it was before the debate, Joe Biden was on his way to a campaign event in Vegas and then on to the West Coast. While in Vegas, they had to cut short all of his campaign stops and fly him back in a medical emergency back to DC. They didn't let him go to a Vegas hospital. No. They flew him back to DC. Remember that? Not everybody remembers that. I remember that. The reason I believe, this is speculation, is because he had an incident with this prostate cancer. They couldn't let him go to a local hospital because then it would become apparent that he had very aggressive prostate cancer that was never disclosed to the public. They had to get him back to DC where he could be seen by White House doctors and the entire thing could be covered up by White House staff. No, they knew he had this for a long time now. Lynn Sanger, thanks so much. Really appreciate you rolling up. Thanks for being here. Remember, everybody, please like, comment, and subscribe. Here we go.
So you had said that some men do not get prostate exams after the age of 70. But some men, most men aren't president of the United States. If you were a president's physician and trying to figure out how the state of his health and how he was doing, would this not seem to be a very normal routine test that you would insist the president have?
Well, it's a complicated area. So because it's slow going, a lot of people say unless the individual has 10 or more years to live, estimated, that you don't do this test. And then if they do, you have a discussion with them about whether to actually perform the test. I don't know what happened in that discussion. There are people, and I'm actually one of them, that would say, I don't want to see that test because part of that test is you get a lot of overtreatment. It's not a very accurate test. Sometimes people say take the test and then you can do an MRI to evaluate whether, if you get a high score, whether in fact there is cancer there or a lesion that would require biopsying. So there's a lot of recommendation to discuss it. I don't know what President Biden and his doctor discussed, but I think you are hinting at the other element, which is that President Obama had this test, President Bush had this test. It is a little surprising that the doctor didn't take it, and if he took it and didn't report it and it was elevated, that is another case of doctors not being straightforward with us. We've had several.
It's not an element of doctors not being straightforward. It's an element of the Biden White House not being straightforward, and the doctors as being part of that ridiculous cabal. Now, check this out. So we know that Joe Biden, and our prayers go out to him. I want to have sympathy. I do, and I hope that he finds solace in Christ. I hope he comes to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ before the end, because I don't wish eternal punishment on anybody. As much as I may dislike them in this life or contend with them or disagree with them, I wouldn't wish that on anybody because I cannot imagine an eternity of that. So let's pray that Joe Biden finds a relationship with Christ before it is too late. But in the meantime, He asked a very specific question. He talked about the fact that Obama has had this test, that Trump has had this test. Now check this out. This is Scarborough again, basically owning himself with another doctor talking about that very fact. Here we go.
Going to run for president for another 4 years. Obviously, the PSA exam is not 100% accurate, and I've never met a doctor that doesn't say you needed to do the PSA exam and also have the physical exam as well. I just find it hard to believe that any White House physician wouldn't say, okay, well, what my doctor and what every other doctor says, which is, okay, we've done the PSA test and that's fine, but at least once a year, we need to do a physical exam. Again, if you're just talking about a 78-year-old guy that is not running the free world, that's one thing. But if you're a White House physician and you have any man over 40 years old, are you not going to at least say, hey, once a year, like every other physician says, once a year, we need to do a physical exam and check? Because this is like one of the leading causes, one of the leading sicknesses for men over 40.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I think 100%. And did they do a digital rectal exam to assess his prostate? Again, typically that's done in the presence of symptoms. To your point, he's the leader of the free world. Did they do it and not characterize it? It's hard to know. We're speculating here. I would say in an abundance of caution, probably be holistic and comprehensive. That would make sense. It is interesting.
Of course it would make sense. It would make sense as he was the incoming president back in 2020 or even before he ran. They would know what his physical condition was. They would have done PSA tests. They would have done physical prostate exams. They would have done a complete, no holds barred physical on him every single year as president of the United States. Absolutely 100%. And I believe that they did. They just didn't tell you, the American public, because they don't care about you and they've been gaslighting you for years. Going on 5+ years now.
Interesting to note that President Trump's, President Obama's, and President Bush II, in their most recent physicals, in their terms of office, obviously 2025 for President Trump, did comment on their PSA levels. And so they got screened while in office and they commented on it. It's not easy to access the most recent ones from President Biden. You can read summary articles. I couldn't access it on the archive site on the White House just before I came on. But according to those that were able to, there is not a report of a PSA test on the most recent physical that was read out for President Biden's last year in office. And so it's to say what was done, what was not done. You and I would be speculating, but the other 3 most recent occupants of the White House had it drawn and it was reported out in the case.
The other 3 occupants of the White House had it drawn, had it done, reported the results to the public, and their actual tests are available in the archive. Not Joe Biden. Those tests are sequestered from even White House doctors. He cannot find it. He could go look up. Imagine just what he said. He can go look up Bush's, Trump's, and Obama's tests, the actual tests. Can he look up Biden's? No. No, Biden's have been scrubbed because Biden is involved and his entire White House is involved in a cover-up. They have been for years. They've been gaslighting the American public, not just on his physical condition, but as we now know, also on his mental condition. We now have the Burr audio tapes. I'm going to play just a snippet because this diagnosis comes on the heels of the leak of the Burr audio interview. Check this out because I think this is why we are getting the cancer diagnosis now. Check this out.
This is what?
During this time when you were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden cancer balloon shot in your book, where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 20, 17, 18, that area.
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. I'm not being, that's not a mean thing to say, but he just thought that she had a better shot of winning presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. Well, if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, when Bo died, May 3rd, 2015. Was it 2015 he died?
It's May 2015.
I think it was 2015.
Or I'm not sure the month through, but I think that was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that and Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why not 2017 here?
That's when you left office, in January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in then.
Right.
January.
Right.
Okay, yeah. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and
So here you've got Biden. And welcome in, Resnap. Thanks so much for rolling up. Really appreciate you being here. Here you've got Joe Biden clearly cannot keep things straight in his head. He has to get told when his son died. What year? Not even, hey, what month? No, he has to get told what year he died, and then he can't even keep that straight. He keeps conflating when Bo died with when he left office, but he can't even figure out that Trump was elected in 16 and came into office in 17, and he left office in 17, but then Bo died in 17. He's got no clue. This entire interview was absolutely damnable proof that they covered up his mental condition. Joe Biden did not have the capacity to run for president of the United States. That was clear. But what they wanted to cover up was he didn't have the capacity to be president of the United States. And he probably hadn't had that capacity, frankly, since the election in 2020. That's why they campaigned him from his basement. And when you listen to Scarborough's doctor, the doctor that Scarborough had on, they had to have known he had cancer for a decade. So now they've got major physical problems. They've got a near terminal cancer diagnosis. They've got serious mental cognition issues that they have covered up and gaslit the public on. The media, over and over, we have showed you the clips over and over again, lambasting anybody who dared bring up Biden's cognitive abilities. Scarborough himself saying, I want you to turn your tapes on. Joe Biden, I'm going to tell you the truth and F you if you can't handle it. Joe Biden is the best Joe Biden he's ever been. No, he was not. Unless Joe Biden has been this mentally deficient his entire career. No, this was a major cover-up. And so the big question becomes, in light of Joe Biden's serious physical decline, his mental decline, who was running the show? Who was pulling the strings? Jill Biden? Obama? Hunter Biden? We've got reports now that it was actually Jill and Hunter making the decisions. I don't know that we'll ever know for sure. We may. Maybe Kash Patel and Bongino will uncover the documents and they will let the American public know just how much of a farce the last 4 years has been. This is a major scandal, which is why I put the word that I put in the thumbnail, because this is not just, oh, we made a mistake. This is not just, we covered up a little something. No, you had somebody as president of the United States who was not capable of being president, and you did not invoke the 25th Amendment. You did not tell the American public. That is a violation of the oath that you took to support and defend the Constitution of the United States to the entire Biden White House, to the entire administration. I cannot hold the media culpable for that. I can hold them culpable for knowing and not telling, but not for the actual crime of treason or anything else, because they haven't taken an oath. But the Biden White House administration did. The politicians in the Democrat Party, Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and others did. They took an oath, and they violated that oath. Now, check this out, because this is the reason I think we are getting the cancer diagnosis made public now. This is not a leak. This is not an oops. This is not a, hey, we just want everybody to know. They want you to know right now for a specific purpose. Check this out. And it's because the gaslight continues.
I mean, as you mentioned, this comes at a time where there is so much and continued attention, placed on his mental acuity and stability, as well as ahead of this book release. And you mentioned there's been a lot of discussion about it. His medical condition now, his announced medical condition now, do you believe that silences or delays a lot of conversations about his, last year and a half of his presidency for now?
Yeah, well, I think those conversations are going to happen, but they should be more muted and set aside.
This is why they are letting you know about his cancer diagnosis. I think they would have been just fine letting Joe Biden die in peace in Delaware on a beach and letting you know 2 months after the fact, oh, by the way, Joe Biden passed away. They would have been perfectly happy doing that, but they can't do that because the leaked audio interview with Burr got released, and now everybody knows how much of a mental vegetable Joe Biden was. As sad as that is, now the public knows just how bad that interview was. And the fact that Burr said, I can't prosecute him because he's not mentally competent. Well, if he's not mentally competent to stand trial, to be prosecuted, then he was not mentally competent to be president of the United States. And that's the gaslight, and that's the cover-up. And so that's why they have released the cancer diagnosis, because they want to mute that conversation. They don't want you talking about the Burr audio. They don't want you talking about the obvious cover-up that has been going on. They want that conversation. They can't make it go away, but they want that to be so covered up with the cancer situation and prayers, thoughts and prayers, and anything else that they can do to mute that conversation. They want it to go away, but we cannot let it. It must remain front and center. Absolutely. Hey, Reppins 12, you are absolutely right. They hit it all. Anybody who talked about it was a conspiracy theorist, 100%. And now in the meme of the day, which is sad and humorous all at the same time, here is the meme of the day. Mike Benz tweeted, they wanted Trump to die in prison. He had Trump would die. But this is the meme of the day. Why don't you have more sympathy with Joe Biden screaming in front in Philadelphia with his blood red background, talking about how all MAGA supporters are basically terrorists and that we all need to be imprisoned. This was the Biden presidency, 100%. Cover-ups and lies on their side, and absolute antagonism and the willful destruction of Trump and anybody associated with Trump. Thank God we are out of that now. We got Trump in office. But this is why Pam Bondi needs to step up and do her job. And we need to see people shackled and going to trial. It is about time. It has been more than 100 days, and we have seen none of it. Come on, Bondi. Let's go. We need accountability now. Hey, thanks everybody for joining me. Really appreciate y'all being here. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Chris Highland Show. Really appreciate y'all rolling up. Thanks for being here on a Monday. Remember, God is good and He is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Till I catch you next time.